On Thursday, a BBC report said Venezuela's chief prosecutor, Luisa Ortega, had opened an investigation into claims of fraud during Sunday's controversial election for a new assembly to rewrite the constitution. The move came just hours after the British-based company, Smartmatic, that supplied the voting system, said the turnout figures had been inflated. The opposition, which boycotted the vote, has dismissed the official tally as fraudulent. Following this, Venezuela's president, Nicolas Maduro, moved quickly on Wednesday to swear in a new assembly. Chester Humphrey was among observers from across the region. He says observers were satisfied with the election process and voter turnout, and added that the fraud claims is simply a loser's complaint.
It's a loser's complaint. There are very few elections where a loser walks away and said, well, I have been fairly beaten. It's interesting that when the opposition held their counter vote, nobody talked about fraud. They had no process of verification. They had no process of registering people. People just showed up. Yet, the international media never raised any concern about whether or not their claim that, I think they said it was 6 million people turned out, there were no questions. There was no verification of their process. But in this case now, there are claims that I cannot speak to that, quite frankly. I have never used a voting machine, so I can't speak to that, but I can speak to what I observe and the process that I observe myself and countless other numbers of persons.
Humphrey also debunked a recent BBC report which spoke to many Venezuelans living in poverty.
It's rather unfortunate. Venezuela is going through some difficulties, there's no doubt about that. The degree of the difficulty is not, as the Western media has said, particularly the BBC. The BBC carried a very absurd and melodramatic report that Venezuelans are so starved that the average Venezuelan lost 22 pounds. Well, from my observation, and I have photographs, I did not see any starving Venezuelans. I saw nobody trashing in the garbage. Let me say there are sections of Venezuela where the environment is much to be desired. There's a lot of garbage and so on. But notwithstanding that, I did not see people lining up in garbage. What I saw in many sections of the city, they were the ordinary Sunday stalls like how we have on a market day. They were vegetable stalls, very much as we close off part of Granby Street there around Percy, every Friday and Thursday. That is closed off for vendors. I saw several streets and neighborhoods in Venezuela, the same process. There are a lot of fruits and vegetables, and that's what I witnessed. All right, I'm not carrying the report of a reporter. I'm carrying the report that I've carried firsthand, that I've seen myself.
The assembly now has the power to dissolve the opposition-run Congress and is expected to sack the country's chief prosecutor, who has harshly criticized Maduro this year. Eugenia Peters, GBN News.